Thank you very much. Thank you to co-chairs for this honor. And I would like to present our findings from our social network-based study showing that the intervention increases HIV self-testing and linkage to health facilities among fishermen in Kenya. By way of rationale, ending the AIDS epidemic in Eastern and Southern Africa is going to require engaging men in HIV testing, prevention, and treatment. And while there's been tremendous progress in the region, the target of over 95% of people living with HIV knowing their HIV status has not been met yet in any country in the region. And men are more likely than women to be unaware of their HIV status, and engaging men remains challenging. Men are less likely to use facility-based health services, and highly mobile men, especially, such as the fishermen working in fishing communities on the shores of Lake Victoria, have especially low uptake of HIV testing and linkage to ART or PrEP. Simply said, the conventional approaches, facility-based and even community-based approaches, are not meeting the needs of all of the populations of mobile men. Our study is conducted in Siaya County on the shores of Lake Victoria in Western Kenya. This is a very rural area. Transmission risks remain very high. HIV incidence remains high, and prevalence levels are between 10 and 19% in communities in the area. Mobility, that is the movement of men across the lake, and the mobility of female fish traders that follow the men who have the fish, as well as a transactional sex economy that's embedded within the fishing industry in Western Kenya, contribute to continued high HIV risks. We know that HIV self-testing bridges the testing gap, but more work is needed on strategies to understand what's the optimal distribution for self-tests, and what do we need to do to increase post-self-test linkage. Social network-based approaches can leverage the power of social influence, and we felt that selecting highly socially connected men within social networks to act as promoters could help to overcome men's barriers to testing and use of health services. We also thought that low-cost financial incentives would still be needed to increase linkage to care and prevention, because going to a health facility means lost income and time to men. Our aims are three. First, to increase to increase men's HIV testing via secondary distribution of HIV self-test kits. Secondly, to improve linkage to care and prevention among men who test for HIV. And thirdly, we will be testing the impact of the interventions on ART or PrEP retention and adherence, still to come. We conducted a cluster randomized control trial where the unit of randomization are the clusters of close social networks of fishermen randomized 1-to-1 in 3 beach communities in Siaya County among men 18 and older who are working in the fishing industry. We started with the registries of beach management units that contain the details, the contact details of men who are registered to work in a particular beach landing site. We updated those registries in order to then screen, recruit, and enroll eligible men. We identified network central promoters using social network mapping, and we used name generators, asking men to tell us up to 10 other men who they turn to most often for 7 types of relations, including money matters, borrowing and lending, leisure and relaxation, emotional support, and other relations. Conducted a rapid analysis of the social network data in order to select the highly socially connected men. And the roles of the promoter in the study were to provide general HIV testing and treatment and prevention promotion, to give HIV self-testing instruction and support among the intervention cluster promoters, linkage support, follow-up, and check-in. We provided a training for the promoters that included basics on HIV infection and transmission, PrEP and ART, and HIV self-testing. This chart shows the intervention and control conditions. The main thing to note is in the intervention clusters, men got HIV self-test kits to distribute to other men in their close social networks, and they also got 500 shilling vouchers to distribute to the men in their close social networks that those men could then use for redemption upon linking to the health facility for confirmatory testing. Also, men in the networks had an option for retention support via SMS text messaging if they chose to have that. The control promoters were given vouchers that they could use to go to the clinics and exchange them for free HIV self-test kits. Our primary outcomes were HIV self-testing uptake, HIV testing via any modality, including the counselor-administered testing, and linkage to study-affiliated health facilities, which was defined as the proportion of individuals from whom the clinic received the promoter-distributed voucher upon linking. The main outcome analysis was conducted using multi-level mixed effects logistic regression, adjusting for the clusters with cluster-adjusted standard errors. On to the results. This shows a snapshot of our consort diagram and also a depiction of the 3 social networks in the 3 beach communities. The main takeaway here is that we mapped and randomized 934 men, of whom 733 had a baseline survey and 666 the follow-up survey. So we retained 88% of the study population, which is pretty good considering the mobility of this population. The men were overall somewhat older. The mean age was 37. Most men, about 85%, were married. As is typical for the area, most men had only a primary level of education or less. And among the married men, 22% were in polygynous unions. Our first outcome, HIV self-testing within 3 months of study start. As you can see, we achieved quite dramatic results. We had 60% in intervention clusters versus 10% in control clusters who reported testing with the self-test kit within 3 months. This shows any testing, any modality of testing within 3 months. And here you see 47% of men in the intervention clusters versus 27% in the control clusters had tested within 3 months with any modality. Finally, this shows linkage to the health facilities for confirmatory testing after testing. And as you can see, we had 70% in intervention clusters versus 17% in control clusters that were linked. And we verified that with the clinic vouchers. In conclusion, a social network-based HIV status-neutral intervention improved men's testing and linkage outcomes and is a promising way to engage men in prevention and treatment. We can harness the power of social networks to diffuse new information, skills, and behaviors, supporting men to engage their friends, men that they know and trust, can normalize going to a health facility, can demystify care-seeking, make it normal to do. And social network-based approaches might be especially helpful for mobile populations. I want to thank my co-authors, our funders, our collaborators, the Ministry of Health of Kenya, NIMH for funding support, and also turn your attention to the 5 other abstracts from our study presented at the meeting this year, including qualitative research and a detailed description of the social network characteristics. Thank you.